Hello everyone, I'm Sophie and I'm currently at Kecara Forest Retreat, Bentong, Malaysia. And this is the book that I'll be sharing from. This is by Pastor David Lai on Tales My Lama Told Me. These are the tales that Rinpoche has shared with him, our Guru, His Eminence the 25th Sam Rinpoche. So today I'll be reading from chapter 2, The Celibate Monk, page 23. And before that, let me go to a picture to share with you. Should be this, yes. Okay. Chapter 2, The Celibate Monk, page 23. I remember this amazing story well, as the telling of it had the audience in stitches of laughter, because Rinpoche kept relating the various characters within this story to different people from within the audience. Jokes aside, the part that struck me most was the beginning of the story where the king lost faith in the guru simply because his expectations and preconceived notions of how a guru should be were not met. The showdown towards the end, when the guru was forced to reveal his true identity, was particularly spectacular and blew away not just the king's mind, but the minds of all of us listening raptly to this story. The tales serve to remind us to not always look upon others in a negative way or to judge with preconceived ideas, but to regard every individual we meet as sacred and precious. A long time ago, a great monk who was once a prince arose from the renowned Nalanda monastery. He was famous for being an erudite scholar at this ancient monastic institution. But after years of scholarly pursuit, he became dissatisfied and sought to renounce the monastic life to become a wandering yogin. While he was an ascetic, he found his guru in the great master Darikapa, who bestowed upon him profound instructions and teachings. Soon Darikapa instructed his student to travel to Pataliputra, the capital of a sprawling kingdom, which was ruled by a powerful king. When he reached the when he reached the city, he settled himself under an immense tree at the outskirts to meditate and beg for his daily sustenance. His fame was as great as a great master grew from there, and even the king himself began to hear about him. The king rode out with his whole entourage and all his elephants to meet this monk. When he arrived, the king stepped forward and requested, "Can you please teach me the Dharma?" "No, I don't want to go into your prison," answered the master. "But I'll give you everything. I'll give you a palace to stay in, and I'll give you whatever you want. Just teach me the Dharma." And again the monk replied, "No, I don't want to go into your prison." The king retorted, "Prison? How dare you?" This exchange went on for a while, but the monk would not give in to the king's demands. By then, the king was very angry, but he could not do anything because the monk was revered as a Dharma king. All this happened during the royal visit, during which the monk did not even stand up and fold his hands as a sign of respect. The king was outraged at the monk's rudeness and began plotting revenge. He returned to his palace in a huff, along with his pageantry of courtesan, people, elephants, peacocks, and trumpets. "I'm going to get that monk," he muttered in anger. The king's reaction at this point was very different from his earlier attitude, when he had humbly requested to be a student of the monk. Now that he had been rejected, he was steeped in anger and thoughts of revenge. He returned to his palace and began plotting to get back at the monk. He thought deeply about this, so his revenge would not implicate him. He asked for the most beautiful courtesan in the land. She was a little older, so she offered her beautiful 16-year-old daughter instead. Her daughter was still a virgin, like a lotus flower, untouched and pure. The courtesan, the young girl's mother, had taught the girl the arts of love, beauty, speech, grooming, walking, carrying water, and arranging flowers. The courtesan had also taught her daughter the art of seduction and pleasing men. The daughter was incredibly beautiful and embodied everything that was desired in a woman. It was said that she was so light and delicate that she could walk across the lake on lotus blooms. So the little flower was sent to seduce the insolent monk in the forest. She went to the monk's dwelling to make offerings, but was asked to leave. She went again the next day, and he kicked her out again. This went on for weeks. Finally, one day, she managed to place the offerings near him and then walked away gently. She swayed her buttocks a little bit more seductively than usual. This caught the attention of the monk, but he went back quickly to his meditations. Softly she replied, "My lord, how can I make offerings and collect merit if you do not allow me to do so? I am only a lay person, and I need to collect merit. Please allow me to offer these beautiful vegetarian curries, and then I will leave." "All right, leave it there and get out," he barked. This went on for weeks. One day, she went to make the offerings again, but this time she stayed on a little later than usual. Then thunder and lightning began to sound and appear in the sky. He screamed at her to leave, but she softly said, "My lord, you are a holy monk and a great ascetic. How can you be so cruel to kick an innocent little girl like me out into the deep, dark forest with lightning and thunder? What would happen to me when I'm out there? I'm scared." He relented. "Okay, you can sleep outside the hut." Horrified, she replied, "Outside? But I'll get wet, and there are wild animals out there." He gave in and said, "Okay, you can come inside, but stay in the corner." She thanked him happily and went inside. During the night, when the last embers of the fire had disappeared, their bodies intertwined. She rolled back and forth during the thunderstorm. She became more scared and went closer to the monk until she was actually hugging him. He hugged her back to protect her because she was scared and shivering like a delicate leaf in the wind. Later in the night, according to the scriptures, they passed the 4 stages of bliss. She then became his consort and eventually bore him a son. She did not go back to the village to bring him food anymore. Instead, she foraged for food in the nearby forest and fetched fresh water for the monk and herself. She cleaned, washed, and did his laundry, and became not only his consort, but also his servant and attendant for 3 years. The king eventually found out what had happened and was very happy that things were going according to his plan. He was extremely pleased with the courtesan and wished to give her a handsome reward. The king prepared to go out to the forest to defame the monk, who was now called Gantapa, the celibate monk. However, by that time, he had had a son. The lovely child was now even going to the village to buy alcohol and pork for Gandapa. This was a big taboo in ancient India, as pork and meat were not supposed to be consumed by those in the religious or social order. Gantapa had openly flouted and broken all the rules. He ate pork, drank alcohol, had a child, and spoiled his little flower consort. This unusual family now comprised the soiled flower, the little boy, and the celibate monk. The king once again traveled to the forest with his whole entourage, which had doubled in size from the last time he visited. He brought along the Brahmins, the high monks and priests, and whole courts, including his queen, the ministers, and great scholars. It seemed like an earthquake was approaching, but Gantapa already foresaw this. "We had better leave to avoid trouble," he advised his family. But just as Gantapa turned the corner with his jar of alcohol hidden in his coat, his son on one side and his consort on the other. The king and his whole entourage appeared right in front of him. The king, of course, savored the moment. Ha! Well, well, well. Who do we have here? Isn't this the great Mahasiddha Gantapa, the celibate monk who refused to be my guru? He refused to me and insulted me by calling my palace a prison. Let's see who's in a prison now. Witness this, holy monk. But the monk replied, I've committed no sin and I have not broken any vows. I have done nothing wrong. The king said, Nothing wrong? But who is that? He pointed at the young lady. That is my consort, Gandapa replied. Oh, so you didn't break any vows. How did your baby come along? Divine conception? How did you have your baby without breaking any vows? Well, yes, this is my son, said the monk. Oh, celibate one, your son was adopted? No, he is mine, he answered. But what's that under your coat? Do I smell alcohol? And what's that? Is that pork? You consume pork and alcohol. You run around with your child and your wife, and you still don't want to be my guru, the king shouted. This monk had to be punished. He is not a monk. Monks cannot break the rules, and this monk refused me. Now look. In front of everyone, he paid the courtesan. The courtesan received a reward and clapped joyfully, her noisy bangles echoing her glee. The king wanted to disgrace and imprison Gantapa, but the monk told him, You cannot do that to me. You will collect a lot of negative karma. The king was infuriated and said, It will be good karma to put you away. You're a disgrace to the Buddha, a disgrace to the monks, and a disgrace to my kingdom. You're such a disgrace. Put this disgrace away. Arrest him. No, the monk shouted in defense. But the king screamed, Arrest him. Kantapa appeared to become increasingly upset. He threw his jar of alcohol to the ground, and as he threw it down, the ground shook, and there was a rumble. He held his wife, and they entered a sacred embrace. His son mystically transformed into a Vraja, and the jar of alcohol turned into a bell. As he held his wife, he floated in the air and transformed into the great adamantine Tantric Buddha, Heruka Chakrasamvara. His body assumed the fearsome, dynamic form of Heruka with four faces and 12 arms. His wife transformed into his consort, Vrajayogini. As he held his consort in the air, he glared at the king. It was said that from where the earth was hit by the Vajra, so much water gushed forth from the hole in the ground that a great flood washed over the land. The arrogant king became scared as the water swept everyone away. Of course, everything was an illusion to teach the king a lesson and break down his pride. The water, along with everything in that scene, was illusory, but the king felt that he was drowning. The people implored and prayed hard, but Gantapa would not release his Vraja anger yet. He remained in the sky with his consort, floating as Heruka and Vrajayogini amid a billowing halo of flames, and looking down upon the king and his entourage. His four faces were burning, and his hair burst out with flying sparks. The drowning king, the entourage, and the sadhus pleaded to the Lord of Compassion, Avalokiteshvara, for help. Avalokiteshvara instantly appeared in the form of Padmapani, with a graceful white face and a beautiful lotus. Padmapani, while holding the lotus of compassion in his hand, granted relief by covering the fissure with his right foot, and the water soon retreated. After the commotion had calmed down, the drenched king, his queen, courtesans, entourage, sadhus, and pandits prostrated to Gantapa. Everyone pleaded with him, Please forgive us for our insolence. Gantapa then relinquished his Raja anger, transformed himself back to his original form, and gave a teaching to all who were there. After the talk, he auspiciously gave the king the initiation of Heruka and Vrajayogini. In that way, he brought the king and his entourage into Kachara paradise in one lifetime. He displayed miracle powers to subjugate the king, who had great influence over thousands of people under him, and to take them all to Vrajayogini's celestial divine paradise. With compassion, Gantapa manifested this entire scene as a culmination of 3 to 4 years he had spent with his consort. He had taught her Dharma every single night and finally gave her an initiation into Vrajayogini and Heruka's practices. He then practiced strongly and sincerely along with him. By serving him, bringing him food, meeting his various needs, and washing his clothes, he collected a great amount of merit. This was not because she was merely a wife who had served her husband, but because she served him and practiced with the motivation of a devotee serving her guru. Their relationship was not merely of a wife and husband, although that was what it had appeared to be. It was actually a profound relationship between a teacher and his disciple. And that was the end of the chapter 2, the celibate monk. So do not be fooled by what you see, as there are many hidden things in life that we do not know of, especially the person that you may be looking down on. He or she could be the great lesson in life that you learn. And with this story, it really brings me back to how we served Rinpoche. And there's so much lessons in our serving Rinpoche. And I really do miss him. And I do hope that Rinpoche would come back soon, quickly, so that we could continue serving him. Thank you. And so with that, we end my sharing with a completion dedication in Tibetan. Jang yo sen jo Rinpoche, ma ke panam ke shi, ke panam pa me pa yang gone to pe washu. Doni to Rinpoche, ma ke panam ke shi, ke panam pa me pa yang gone to pe washu. Dason chini sa pagi wadi tandan droa guna gampadang jepa jesu no santrapai tampingi porindu sa seishu. Kewa kuntu yandala mandahan drami jogi panano joje sadam nangi yate razone doje changi ngopana so. Gewa di yududa lamas angyo drone drowa chike malupa de isala gopashu. Jogi kaposong kapa josu nampa pewala. Geki sama siwada donki malu sawashu. Dadan seng indusunda. Drewe songi latini gewa la santrapai tampa yuriva gyushi. Ni modele sendele. Ni me gunyandele shin ni sendatu dele pel koncho sungi jingilo. Koncho sungi ngotruso koncho sungi trasi shu. Yesu lama kusenrap tingching nam katrini jochuge. No something be draw me subsungi draw him satatu ni gyushi. Gangri rawe kowe shinkam dem pendan dewa manu goin. Chen zi one ten singet so I shape shidi badu teng gyushi. Hum tumpi ngodru malupa den de dala saldu so kodan dem pa long chotna ke pasu shik shukten sa. Well, thank you for sharing your time with me, and please do join me for when I share chapter 3, the dauntless one. Thank you.